Hi, my name is Carling FitzSimmons. I'm 32 years old, and today is June 14th, 2021. I am speaking in Chicago, Illinois, and I'm having a conversation today with my dear friend and colleague, Patty Kennedy. Patty, yes, that's right. You are Kennedy.
I am Kennedy. Hello, I am Patty Kennedy, and today I am 33 years old. And today is June 14th, 2021. And I am talking with my very dear friend and colleague and partner, Carling FitzSimmons.
So, Patty, the reason I messed up your name is because we've known each other for a really long time. Do you know how long has it been since we've met?
I think 10 years. I think we met in 2011, and it is now 2021.
That's amazing.
It is amazing
Do
because
you
I
re-
feel like, in the chapters of my life, I still think about Chicago as being like a recently opened chapter. Um, and that, like, the people that I met upon entering Chicago, those are sort of my new friends. And I'm like, no, we met, yeah, when I was Patty LeClaire.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about why you came to Chicago and like where did you come from?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Seattle, Washington, and I studied music since I was a small child, and ended up going to college in Appleton, Wisconsin, um, which is truly amazing that I ended up there because when I went to audition for college, the wind chill factor when I was there hit negative 40
Oh
degrees.
God.
And I, was living in Seattle and was like used to, I think I like brought a fleece and like, and this
I
as
do know
somebody who has
this.
to always yell at me for being inappropriately dressed for Midwest weather. Um, but like I showed up at Lawrence University and it was snowy and negative 40, and
No.
I somehow was like, yeah, this is definitely where I want to spend the next 5 years of my life.
Because you're hardcore,
Um,
Patty.
because I'm hardcore and that's just seemed like the right, place for me. Um, but yeah, I studied music at Lawrence, and there is where I met my then boyfriend, now husband, Carl. And we both studied music. And then, after we both finished our bachelor's degrees, he applied for graduate school. I was not ready to apply for graduate school because undergrad was, quite enough for me at that moment. But he got into DePaul for his master's, and we were considering different places, that we might like to live. But then even at that time, I was like, I think I want to be a professional choral singer. And I didn't really know if that was a real thing, but I had heard talks that maybe it was.
I was gonna say,
Um,
like, did you have any examples of that in your life, like coming into this, or were you kind of trailblazing?
I think I knew of like Chicago Symphony Chorus.
Mm.
And I think I sort of like asked my teacher about that. And I think she is sort of who told me, and she has spent a lot of time in Chicago, that like, oh, there are like also professional chamber choirs, there are a lot of different professional, if you're not interested in just pursuing opera or solo vocal work. Um, yeah, so I remember going and like Googling professional choirs in Chicago.
I
And
did the
like
same thing.
I saw like, the whole list of everything come up. And I remember just like, oh, there's a lot of professional choirs in Chicago. We should go there. Yeah. And so we moved to Chicago in 2011, and it was like very much the right choice for us.
Hmm. It's a
Yeah,
very music friendly city.
it really
Like,
is.
I feel like I had a similar experience, like graduating and sort of not knowing where exactly life would take me. Um, but I grew up in Chicago or Oak Park, so the area, and I knew that the city was a very friendly one, and I knew that I had connections here. And so when I was moving back to Chicago in 2011, um, I sort of chose it because I felt that it was a town where really excellent music could be made and you could start something new. You know what I mean? Like you could sort of forge your own path or try new things and not have to sort of break your neck doing it. Like I perceive that to be the case of like a city like New York, for example, where
Yeah.
it's much harder to sort of break ground and have your life be what you would like it to be. But Chicago seemed like the place to do that. And so, yeah, I did the same thing as you did. I like Googled all these opportunities and all these different choirs, and I like took some truly disastrous auditions, like
Oh,
truly disastrous.
yeah. And I wouldn't have even know like, oh, I would have been so, yeah. Everything I was auditioning for at that time, I was like so scared.
Yeah, same. And also now looking back, like very unprepared for those kinds of opportunities. Like I took a symphony chorus audition as a senior in college before moving, and I was like, oh
Okay.
man, like I'm gonna nail this. I'm a good musician. Like I'm a good sight reader. And then I go into the audition and I hear, the other singers in the warm up rooms, and I'm just like, oh, I am punching way above my weight here.
I am a small little
I'm a
like
nice, like I'm a chamber ensemble voice, and these are like big voices. But then we both found our way to Chicago Choral Artists, which is where we
yeah,
met. So
it
do
is.
you remember the day that you introduced yourself to me?
I think we were going to like have we were on choir break and we were going to get a snack. Like it was like we were all getting in line to get our choir snack because that's what professional choirs have is snack time. Uh, but I think I came up to you like on the stairs and was like, "You have a choir. I really want to be in your choir."
Yes. Yes. That's exactly what it was. It was like I had no friends in this ensemble. I knew no one. I was coming on Tuesday nights and just sort of like keeping my head down and singing my music. And then all of a sudden, it was because my two friends who I moved back to Chicago with, and I had this trio called La Cachina. It was this professional women's vocal ensemble. And we had a concert, our very first like real life adult concert coming up. And so I like stood up before break in the choir rehearsal and I made this announcement. And I was very nervous because, again, I didn't have any friends, I didn't know anyone, and no one knew me. And I was just like, hey, we're going to be performing this concert. You're welcome to come. Here are the details. And then, yeah, at break time, all of a sudden, I like turn around with my little plate of grapes, and there's this like face right here, and it's yours. And you're just like, hello, you have a choir. I want to be in your choir. I'm Patty. We're going to be best friends. I think you actually said like I want to be your best friend or something like that.
Something like
It
that.
was very charming in a like sort of the way that like kindergartners are very innocent and they're like, yes, I love everyone and everyone loves me. And that was just the energy that
And
you had.
obviously, you're going to want to be my best friend,
Yes.
darling.
Well, but look where we are. Like you're so right on the money.
I know. I was so right. I just knew.
You
I
knew.
knew that your aura was like the one that I needed to entangle with. Yeah, I just remember thinking I feel like I was trying to get into a lot of established ensembles or like looking around at a lot of the established ensembles and thinking like how cool it would be to be in a project that I had some ownership over.
Mm,
Like and also yeah, like a real chamber group.
yeah.
Um and I think I was also like really discovering the Waylon Jennys right at that moment.
Iconic.
Yeah. And so, like listened to La Cucina and was like, oh my gosh, they're like the Waylon Jennys who sing all kinds of music from around the world. And that sounds like exactly what I want. Um, and that's something that I think also, yeah, I feel like I'm trying to think what was the concert name that was the first one that I came to?
It was called Little Voices, and the reason it was called that was because we were singing the Poulenc Petite Voix, which is this suite of five kind of like grown-up children's songs about like the poetry is very silly and very juvenile and very like I found a hedgehog and I brought him into my kitchen and then I fed him milk and dad stepped on him and got mad at me. Like that's the sort of vibe of all the poetry. But the pieces themselves are very challenging and very sophisticated. And so we sort of modeled our first concert around this idea of like um, little voices that we don't typically like look at as being particularly impactful or important in society can have a really large impact, even if it's only within like the microcosm of their sphere. And like how big are those concentric circles when they start to ripple outwards. um, so, but also like we had a bunch of music that we wanted to sing, and so we put it all in the concert.
So you put it all in one
Yeah, we're
concert.
like,
Yeah.
okay, what's the theme here? It really wasn't until later that that I started doing more um, like more purposeful programming with our music. But we can talk about that later because I think that comes after you have joined the group.
Yeah, absolutely. So you and Caroline and
Joanna.
Joanna came from Kenyon, and you guys all sang in the group Cola Voce that you founded there.
Yes.
What year were you when you founded Cola Voce?
So yes, we were. It was the summer, like right before our junior year, when we decided, like right at the end of the school year of sophomore year, we found some part songs, and for 4-part women's voices, and we did some singing, and we did some just like, hey, let's try this out and see if it sounds good, with another of our friends who's actually now a professional musician, in the New York area, and she tours all around. She doesn't do classical music anymore, but she's very cool. Um, anyway, so we did some singing, and we were like, "Oh, this is actually going to work." And then our junior fall, we came back to campus and like started this ensemble in a more serious way.
And did Cola Voce, did it grow to a few more
Oh my
people, or
gosh.
did it stay a quartet?
Yeah, no, it got really it actually like I'm really thrilled with this like kind of legacy that is now at Kenyon College. Because Kenyon, to like back up and give you some context, Kenyon is tiny. It's in the middle of Ohio. It's like an hour north of Columbus. And for those who are like, if you're not familiar with the area, it's surrounded by cornfields. It's very rural. It has one street, like the town is just one street long, and the street like runs through the center of the campus. So it's sort of like if you imagine like a dog bone shaped sort of situation with like there's academic buildings on one end and that's like one side of the bone, and then there's this like skinny little thing that goes across, and that's the town, and then there's like academic buildings and residential buildings at the other end too. um, and there's nothing to do there. Like there's no movie theater, there's no, you have to have a car in order to get to anything kind of cultural that's not involved with the campus life. And so at Kenyon, the arts are really big because that's your entertainment, is what you do yourself. And so there's like per capita an absurd number of a cappella ensembles at Kenyon.
I feel like that is something Kenyon is like famous
I know, and
for.
I don't know why. Like, there's just nothing else for kids to do, and so we're like, all right, let's sing some a cappella music.
Yeah.
But it's really cool because, um, to the same end, if you want to create something at Kenyon, you can do it. Like, you just see an opportunity, and then you go for it, and you make it happen. And so, um, so Cola Voce, we founded it as a quartet, but then my friend Nandi, who I mentioned earlier, who's a pop musician now, went and studied abroad for her second semester junior year, and so we needed to replace her, and so we auditioned in another singer, who's actually Robin, who became one of our singers in La Cucina after she graduated. And then when Nandi came back from her study abroad, we realized like we don't want to kick Robin out. We want to become more voices. And with more voices, you can do more complex repertoire, right? You can do like the Holst Ave Maria in double choir if you've got 8 voices, 8 really excellent voices. And so by the time I graduated, we were 8 singers. And then after I graduated, it continued. So now there have been like several classes of like dozens of singers with Kola Voce at Kenyon, and it still exists today. And people sort of can't think of a time when it didn't exist and when it wasn't taken seriously. But like when I started it, when we all started doing this ensemble, the only kind of a cappella singing you could do at Kenyon was pop. And so we weren't taken seriously. And
Sure.
we sort of were looked on as like, oh well, that'll just, peter out. And so it's a very like it's a very glowy feeling to know that they're still going and that they're respected in a way that I think was hard won.
Yeah. That's so awesome. And when you guys decided to move to Chicago, like when did you like you guys were like packing up and like getting ready to go to Chicago? Did you think of La Cucina while you were still finishing up at Kenyon? Or did you think of it like once you had moved there and you and Caroline were moving into your apartment? Like when was the actual birth of the idea?
So that's a little bit of an interesting question because I think what La Cucina is today and like what you have been a part of making it into is not what we originally started out to do.
Sure.
And like I think we Joanna, Caroline, and I uh, decided that we were going to move together to make music together to Chicago. That was going to be the plan. And so we did know that we were going to continue to sing in an ensemble in some way, shape, or form. And we did know that we wanted to start our own um, like ensemble and put our mark on the landscape of music in Chicago because I mean, we've talked about this many times, right? Like there really isn't, there certainly wasn't at the time an ensemble that was operating at a professional level that was only women's voices and that was highlighting the work of women. Um,
Absolutely. I remember in my very first Google search
mm-hmm.
that I only found mixed voice
Yeah.
ensembles.
Which I think is like, that's kind of unsurprising, right? Because that's the landscape. Much of the repertoire is written for mixed voices. Certainly, historically, much of the repertoire has been written for mixed voices, and therefore, it sort of becomes an echo chamber, right? Like when you think about the other ensembles that we sing in, like you program what people are going to want to see, and what people are familiar with is the old way of doing things, which is an SATB ensemble. So yeah, so we moved and we established, we had our first couple of concerts. Um, and then, uh, Joanna left the ensemble to pursue other opportunities and eventually moved away. And you and another singer that we met through CCA, Elena, joined. And that was kind of the first moment where I thought, like, okay, this is actually bigger than just, my college friends and I like getting together to sing sometimes. This, like, there are other singers like me who are trying to make something of ourselves. We're trying to establish ourselves in the scene who care about this idea, right? And who like count on it for part of their success. And
Yeah.
so I'm curious actually to know like how did you find the experience of singing in La Cucina when we were a quartet when you first joined?
I mean, I think I loved it right off the bat because it was like, four good chamber singers. Um, and I, I really I loved your guys' blend for like that was I remember in the first concert that I came to see of you, I was just like, my favorite thing to do as a chamber choral musician is to blend into other voices.
Yes.
And I just remember being like, oh, this group like can make one perfectly cohesive sound. Um, and yeah, I just remember being excited about the music that you picked because you picked a really wide array of music for us, even in those very, very early years. And I, from my whole background, have been a singer who is like really interested in singing a vast um, array of music. And yeah, so that was exciting to me. And I was just very drawn to how serious, like, I was like, this is from the very beginning, I was like, this is very serious work,
Totally.
like Carling is very serious about this. And like, I am so excited. And so I am very serious about it too.
Yes. Well,
um,
I feel like you kind of have to be, right? Like as a I mean, I guess you don't have no, you do. You totally do. Because if you're not serious about it, like you'll drop out, you know?
yeah,
Like this is a hard profession. Um,
it is a hard
it's
profession.
it's hard to make a living as a professional singer, especially like well, no, as a professional singer at any capacity, because if you're a soloist, you can get like the big gig, but then you have to keep getting the big gig, right, in order to pay your
Right,
bills. And if you're a choral singer, you have to be reliable and you have to be steady and you have to, say yes to things. Like
right,
I feel like that kind of primed us to be able to tackle something like this, because those first couple of years in Chicago were just for both of us just like saying yes all the time to like any
yep,
opportunity that came up. And even though La Cucina like paid pennies, like we would pay our singers for concerts only those first couple of years, I think.
I don't think we even, I think we just had like a I don't think by the like my first concert, I think we basically had like a little bit of money. It was like suggested
Yep,
donation,
I remember that.
um, and we paid the church.
Yeah.
Basically, like I think our income went to like paying for a church that like allowed us to rent it for $100.
Oh my God, I'm so glad we're not living that life anymore.
I know. Oh yes, we've thank goodness we've come a very long way.
Yes.
But yeah, it's every year that we like kept moving forward, it was like, oh, this is getting like more
Hmm.
serious. And this is like, wow, we've sung kind of a lot of repertoire. Um, and like what year was the first commission for La Cucina?
I want to say it was really early. I want to say it was like 2012.
Okay.
Um, yeah, because we knew like pretty quickly we realized that the amount of choral repertoire that was available for high level women's ensemble or high level treble voices was very small, and also very limited in its in terms of the themes that it dealt with. Like you could sing, if you
Yeah.
were a woman, you could sing about flowers, you could sing about being in love, you could sing about children, and that was,
Or you could sing as
or you could sing
children.
as children, yes, and that was kind of it. There wasn't repertoire that dealt with the sort of more meaty themes and the more frankly important themes that choral music can and does now deal with. And so we knew that part of our mission was going to have to be commissioning works and giving composers an incentive to write for high level treble ensemble, because it's sort of like a whatever that baseball field is, like if you build it, they will come. It's
Yeah.
like if a choir exists to sing that music, then people will want to write that music, but
Yeah.
otherwise it won't get done.
Yeah.
So yeah, so now, looking, I love programming now because there's so many options, right? Like there's so many composers who are writing amazing music for high level treble ensembles because we exist and others like us now exist, and there's an audience that's hungry to hear that and hungry to amplify voices that I think have been traditionally sidelined in the conversations. And by conversations I mean like compositions and who are the creators of music. So that whether that's women or people of color or LGBTQ folks, or anybody who doesn't see themselves reflected in like mainstream quote unquote classical music in the West, we want to hear those voices, and like La Cucina does a really important job of bringing them into the conversation. Rocio, we lost Patty. You were right. This is really easy to fill 40 minutes of time. I'm sort of watching the clock go. I'm like, oh yeah, I could talk for another hour. um, so let's talk a little bit about who we are today, since we've sort of gone through our history.
Yeah.
Um, so like if you were okay, you're trying to describe La Cucina to your Aunt Muriel at Thanksgiving, and she knows nothing about choral music, and she's like, "What is it that you do?" So how would you describe us?
I would describe us as a professional women's vocal ensemble whose mission is to um, perform really, really high level repertoire and to commission really high level repertoire from very diverse compositional voices and to perform that repertoire at the very highest level. I
That
think would
sounds
be
lovely,
But
dear.
yes, Aunt Muriel, it really is.
Yeah, I'd say that
um,
that's pretty accurate. And how many singers are we now?
we are now 9, and we typically like to hang out at 9. Um, 9 seems to be really great for um, if you end up wanting to, as you say, devise. Um, if you'd like to devise or divide in like SSA, or it'll also like it's okay. You can split a lot of different ways when you're 9.
Yeah,
And we have done some 9-part divisi repertoire, which is fun.
yeah. I like
Um,
I like when we can sing all one on a part, because it really sort of leans into one of the strengths that I think our ensemble has, which is that we all are very reliable. You know that you can count on every single singer in the ensemble. There is no like weak link in the chain, and so when we're all together and singing into each other's sound, like there's just this moment of like transcendence that happens for me, where I realize suddenly that like I have like lost my own self, but in the best possible way. Like I've
mhm.
lost my sense of ego and individuality in that way, and just sort of put it into this greater creative force that's happening. Do
Yeah.
you find that too?
Oh, yeah. And I think that's the part of choral music, and specifically chamber choral music, that I feel like is sort of like divine,
Hmm,
that you get to just like step into a sound that is your own, but isn't your own.
totally.
And is, um, I just love the fact that in chamber choral music, you can have not an ounce of arrogance.
Hmm,
You have to be just like completely a team player. And that's part of the magic of La Cucina, and the fact that we've had a lot of the singers that we have had for many, many seasons. Those voices are like so used to fitting in the nooks and crannies of each other, um, and so used to, you know, um, yeah, fitting into each other, that nobody's trying to make their voice heard over anyone else's. Um, Nobody feels that their timbre is really the dominant one that others should fit into.
hmm,
Um, and that's just something that I think, is like very special and unique about La Cucina.
totally. I wonder, do you think that that's a characteristic of treble music specifically? Like that it's harder to pick out a dominant part? Because some I'm thinking about this in like compared to SATV music, where usually the soprano line is what you hear, and every other line underneath that supports that melody, or supports that idea. And like sometimes you get the parts passed around. You get the melody in the tenor, you get the melody in the like bass. Very rarely in the alto. Um, but I feel like when the voices are so close in terms of their harmonic range, that it's like a different thing to write for treble voices than it is to write for mixed voices. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I think it's a really unique thing to write for. But I love the fact that treble voices can all fit into each other in a way. I mean, God bless mixed ensembles. They're amazing. And we both love singing with them. And I love singing with a changed male voice for sure. Um, but I love the unique sound of all treble voices that can perfectly fit into each other.
Hmm.
And yeah, those like really close harmonies. And we were, I loved actually hearing that from Marie Claire Sandon, who we just commissioned a piece from, and her talking about that she specifically loves writing those really like close harmonies.
Hmm.
Because yeah, the harmonies are much more spread um, in mixed choir music. Um, yeah, yeah, I just love treble voices and the way they sound all together.
I do too. Do you have a favorite either piece that we've sung or moment from a concert in the past that you can think of that like stands out to you as being particularly, I don't know, emblematic of like the magic of treble music?
Oh gosh. Um, I think probably when we were singing like the second fall concert and we were singing our um I am becoming
Hmm.
this piece about I am becoming the woman I've wanted.
Hmm.
And those the lyrics of that piece are just like hit home, I think, a lot for women. Um, and also the experience of like women going through different phases of their lives. And we were, the second concert of a pair of concerts is always the tighter one, and it's
Yeah.
always the one where you're looking up from your music more, you're just like really tuned into each other. And I had this moment where it was like, we were singing these words and we were all looking up at each other, and we were like, I felt the energy from the audience, and there was just this like full divine connection of just like the energy of audience and singers and a story that was like very impactful for all of the people who were singing it. Um, that made me just think, oh, this is the most important thing I could be doing right now.
Yes. I totally agree. Like that piece really sticks out for me as being a special one. I think also because that was our last um like our last concert just as La Cucina before the pandemic hit. That was the last time we sang just as our
Oh my
ensemble
gosh, that's
because
so true.
yeah, because the spring was or yeah, the March concert was with Constellation Men's Ensemble with whom we've collaborated in the past, but they're a men's ensemble and so their voices are changed and not all treble. So yeah, that concert really sticks out to me too. And I just love moments where um like we rehearse a lot in terms of like especially compared to other ensembles. Like we have a weekly rehearsal and we usually rehearse for like between 8 and 10 weeks before a concert, which is a lot. Like when we sing with Bella Voce, for example, you and I have like 5 rehearsals if we're lucky the week before a concert, and then we go into it. So I think that amount of rehearsal together really enables us to sort of develop um, this like group decision making ability where we don't even necessarily have to talk about a musical decision. We can just sort of make it, and we can make it happen in the moment, sort of like those murmurations of starlings that like take up the whole sky in the autumn and they just sort of swirl around and in this like cloud of like blackness, and it
Yeah,
doesn't seem like there is any one lead bird, but yet they all change and morph at the same time.
that
um
is so accurate. And we are a bundle of not starlings, but carlings.
I'm
I'm
a
sorry, that
bundle
was
of
just you.
carlings.
You are a
No.
bundle of carlings. But yeah, that's so true. That's a really good way to put it. That
Yeah,
it's like a choreographed dance,
that
but
nobody
that nobody
choreographs.
choreographed,
Yeah,
but everybody knows which way to step, and everybody knows who to catch, and everybody knows who to, you know, um, yeah, that's really true.
it
And
it's like magic to me because I can't think of this only comes from being around people, a person for so long and trusting them so completely. So that
Right.
any tiny motion that anybody makes in one direction, like let's say we've rehearsed something and we've rehearsed it forte. So we've rehearsed it really loud and powerful. And then in the moment of the concert, just like feeling the energy of the room and deciding all together, like, no, we're gonna sing this actually really soft. And like maybe one person does start it, but it really doesn't feel that way. It just feels like this group decision to be like, no, let's draw them in, as opposed to like blasting outward. Um, yeah, that happens more frequently in La Cucina than it ever does in any other ensemble that I perform with. And I truly think it comes from just the insane amount of trust that we have for each other and respect for each other's musicianship.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And we also perform, like you are our artistic director and
Hmm.
you run our rehearsals, and like certainly you are our conductor, but you step in, sing as a part of the ensemble instead of in most ensembles situations where you would have a conductor standing out front. And that's another thing that I feel like makes it feel like we are all moving as one.
Hmm.
Um, is that we're not all looking outwards at a conductor, but
Mm.
we are all looking inwards towards each other,
Hmm.
um, and sort of, yeah, all moving as one.
Yeah. And I think that allows us to like share our story more fully with the audience as well. Like, I love looking at you when we're singing because you always give so much with your face to whoever you're looking at. So whether that's, you're looking back at me to like, share a moment or call attention to like a cue or something like that. But then when you turn your face outward, like you express so deeply with the audience as well, and so it's like it's a joy to watch you sing as much as it is to hear you sing. And you just like give so much of yourself when you perform, which I really value about you.
Oh, thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Well, yeah, I feel the same about you and sort of about every member of La Cucina,
Mm,
and everybody gives a really specific energy with their face and sort of their whole spirit
yeah.
when we're singing. Like I feel like I get a different specific warmth
Mm,
from, each individual person. And like I know that if I'm feeling nervous, I'm always going to look at you because you are just like so collected, and your warmth is just like, I got this and I got you, you know.
hmm.
And if I need like just like the sweetest warmth, I'm going to look at Alana
Yeah, Alana.
because she'll just like tickle your heart when you look at her. um, and oh my goodness, I just can't wait
I
for us
know.
to be able to sing together again after this,
I know. I kind of
La
can't believe
Cucina.
I can't believe that like our season is planned. Like we're getting back together. We're all vaxxed.
Yeah.
We're gonna make it happen this upcoming season. What would have been our 10th anniversary season was derailed by COVID. So this coming year, 10th anniversary of our friendship, Patty, but also the 10th anniversary of La Cucina performing
Yes.
together. Okay, so let me ask you this. If you uh, if you had a wish for La Cucina in the future, like looking 10 years down the road, what do you wish for the ensemble?
I wish that we would be performing just like a huge amount of new repertoire that we can commission as many pieces as our little hearts desire, and that we are in all different ways employing a tremendous and diverse number of women singers in Chicago, and providing like a really really equitable and really fulfilling work to, yeah, a really huge number of singers.
See, this is why we make a good team, is because your goals and your wishes are exactly mine. Like I would love to see Chicago be like a leading charge city for new music and like diverse kinds of music and like lots of avant-garde, like innovative stuff. And I want La Cucina to be nationally recognized as one of the leaders of that movement. Like I want, people to want to come to travel to Chicago to hear us or to workshop with us, to sort of hear how our story began and what we're doing now, um, and how we can push that goalpost forward. You know what I mean? Because we've come a long way. We as an ensemble, but also like the classical community, I feel has come a long way, even from 10 years ago when we started. Um, but there's still a long way to go. And I want Kachina to be like the driving force within the nation for this kind of music making. I think we can do it.
I think so too. I don't think there's anything other than, you know, there's it's just time.
Yeah.
And we have the drive and we have the love. Um, so I think we're just going to put in the time and make it happen.
Yay.
Yeah. Well, I think our time has completed, but Carling, it is as always such a joy to talk to you about choral music and life and decades of friendship.
Yes, same. I treasure you so much, and I'm just so grateful that you're on this journey with me. Thank you, Patty.
Yay.